Hi, and welcome to the I Teed Myself podcast. My name is Matthew Miniman, and this is episode 101, Game of Thrones miniseries episode 1, What Can House Stark Teach Us About Getting Hacked? So, this is the first miniseries. Welcome to the first miniseries of the I Teed Myself podcast. This is going to be a little bit different than what we've normally done in the past. I'm going to go and effectively just do one house per episode from the book series, TV show series, Game of Thrones. So, spoiler alert, if you haven't watched or read the books, watched the show or read the books, read the show or watched the books, then you may not know what I'm talking about. And also, this is probably going to spoil a lot of the story for you. But honestly, it's been fucking, 8 years since the last show, since the last episode. And yeah, I don't feel bad. I don't feel bad about spoiling the show for you. So yeah, anyway, moving on. So House Stark in Game of Thrones, they are the Watchers of the Wall. They're the Watchers of the North. They are the family that protects the rest of the realm from whatever is in the North. And we were introduced to them as basically the main characters of the entire series. And there are several children. Not going to go through all their names because basically that even though the Starks are in a loveless marriage, they fuck like rabbits. So nothing else to do. But one of the things that is common across all families of Westeros is that they all have a motto. And generally, all families across Westeros use their motto as sort of words of power that reminds folks of their positive traits. It's basically, this is the strength of our family. This is our positive trait. And the Starks have a motto, but it's used vastly different. Instead, their motto is meant to remind people that there are dangers to plan for, to prepare for, and also that the Stark family is the primary defender of and from this danger. And so, with that, the house motto of Stark, if you don't know, is winter is coming. And that's supposed to remind everybody, hey, the winter is coming. There are dark things in the winter. And in the world of Westeros, again, if you haven't read the books, fuck you. The whole thing is that this world sees years of summer and then years of winter. And during the years of winter, things rise up from the depths of winter. So there are ghosts and ghouls and zombies and other things that come down from the north to prey on the people of Westeros. And the Stark family is supposed to defend against that. They built a wall to prevent the things from the far north from coming down to the mainland of Westeros. They created the Black Watch, which is what mans the wall. So, the House of Stark can teach us quite a bit about getting breached, because just like in Game of Thrones, winter is coming. You will get breached. Hackers are coming. They are coming for your stuff. And it doesn't matter how good preparation you do against a compromise or against vulnerabilities or whatever. It doesn't matter if your organization has a lot of preventative measures and so on and so forth. You will get compromised. You will get hacked. How am I this confident that it's going to happen? Why do I have such a sunny disposition when it comes to this? Well, just to flat out there, over a long enough time period, every mistake will be made. And that's something that you just kind of have to understand, is that you cannot, as a security practitioner, plan for every possible circumstance that's going to come across. You don't know when somebody's going to make a mistake. You don't know when a configuration is going to sit there unrecognized or unnoticed. You don't know when somebody is going to let the door open. So you will get breached. Your organization should know this. They should adopt this thought process, because this is why we have security in depth, defense in depth. This is why the House Stark says winter is coming. It's to remind people that it's going to happen. It's not a small, unknown, less frequent option or less frequent occurrence. It's going to happen. They know it. And so they want everybody to prepare for this coming winter. So with that being said, how do you prepare for an attack? How do you implement defense in depth? How do you make sure that you're prepared for the coming winter? Well, in the world of Game of Thrones in Westeros, you're supposed to do this by raising armies, farming, and making sure that you have enough resources to last that winter, and also enough defenses to protect yourself and those that you care about from whatever harms they're going to come across from winter. And we can do the same thing as security practitioners. We can prepare, we can create preventative measures, but we can also create layers and defensive actions and things like that. So having a honeypot or a canary is going to be kind of key in a lot of this, because when you have a canary, if you're planning for that eventuality that you will get compromised, that there will be a breach, a canary is a very, very good way for you to see that before anything malicious actually happens. Just because you get breached does not mean you have to sacrifice all of your data. That's not what that means. You should understand that. And I guess I should have dropped that at the top a little bit earlier ago. Just because you get breached does not mean you have been fully compromised. Does not mean your system is fully owned. You will have a breach, and whether or not you have prepared for it is whether or not it will be minor. And so to have things like a canary and detection mechanisms and preventative mechanisms, this will ensure that whatever breach occurs in your organization is minor or limited. And that's where we as security practitioners really have to put all of our work and effort, is in that preparation, is in the assumption that we are going to get hacked, and this is how we're going to eliminate the vast majority of the risk that's associated with that. To spell it out another way, so you have to have a layered approach that includes several different pieces. So you have a firewall, right? That's going to be your primary layer of defense for people coming into your organization. So on top of your firewall, you also have several different detection mechanisms known as host intrusion detection systems. And those host intrusion detection systems might also have prevention methodology. So they're actually a host intrusion prevention system. But you can also have a network intrusion prevention system and detection system as well. A lot of the network stuff is probably going to be handled by your firewall, but you can also have things like a separate security appliance that analyzes your traffic. So you can have something like Suricata running on the side. And then each workstation or endpoint has its own protection on it. So there's some sort of EDR or XDR functionality that is analyzing traffic coming into your organization. And each endpoint has its own detection sensor. So that way, when an attacker does get in, you can see the exact path they take. And for those systems that you can't protect, you've isolated them on their own network so that only specific communication can occur on your network. So basically, you've crafted a way for an attacker to only see very limited amounts of things. And even when they do get into your organization, they're not going to be able to pivot or move horizontally across your network. That's where your efforts should lie as a security practitioner. You should be working towards that prevention and limitation of risk. And we do that by following the security compliance guidelines and adding best practices in and following and implementing STIGs and getting a lot of this stuff in place. That's why, as a security practitioner, you should not allow people to talk you out of the best security practices. You should always stick to it, because without a layered approach, if an attacker were to get in, if we were to let the door open somehow, some way, which we know is eventually going to happen, we will get hacked. Hackers are coming. Winter is coming. We must prepare. And so this is again all in that preparation step, and where all of our efforts should lie as security practitioners. And it's one of those aspects of security that I have had to walk several people interested in the industry out of, because they think that security is all about, oh, well, I just get to tell people what to do. And, security really isn't that hard of work, because it's just typing on a keyboard and, looking at data. And yes, some aspects of it are like that. And if all you want to do is be a security analyst and look at data and be bored out of your fucking mind for 8 hours a day, sure, go ahead. You won't earn very much. Your skills will be very limited, but yeah, fuck it. You can do the easy job if you want. Where the hard part of the job comes into play, where the ability of good security practitioners lies, is in that aspect of preparation, where we understand what is coming into the organization and how our organization is formatted, what the workflows look like, and how data flows. And as a security practitioner, knowing this, implementing controls around it, and having some sort of preventative measures for those aspects of the organization at risk, are what are going to keep our organization from being completely destroyed by a single breach, by one of these offhanded breaches that we know is going to fucking occur. So, all that being said, when shit goes down and your organization does get breached, how do you respond? What do you do? Well, depending on whether or not you've actually done your job as a security practitioner, followed through with your actions, and actually implemented best practices, there's a couple of ways that it could go. If you have done all of your stuff properly and, followed the rules, done what you've said, then when you walk through this breach, you're going to be able to respond appropriately. You're going to have the stuff in place to make sure that your organization doesn't fall apart. However, if you haven't done that, if you've allowed people to sidestep your compliance controls, you've decided to make exceptions for specific things, you haven't fully vetted your vendors, so on and so forth, what's going to end up happening is you're going to come into that breach, and then you're going to get stabbed in the belly and watch your wife die, and your dog get its head cut off, and your mom is just going to she's going to watch all of this in horror, and just, wow, it's going to be a terrible, terrible red wedding. Man, I should really shoehorn that in there. Anyway, yeah, so the whole point is that if you don't prepare, if you don't follow through, it's going to be like Robb Stark getting just absolutely slaughtered, getting all of his family slaughtered, and all of his men slaughtered at the Red Wedding, because he didn't fucking follow through with what he said he would do in marrying Frey's daughter, and that just fucking destroyed any chance that he had with moving down to King's Landing to help control Joffrey's mad kingness. I don't know. He's a fucking 5-year-old or whatever. He's 10 years old and he's a piece of shit. Anyways, the whole point being is that you should always maintain your security practitioner. You should always maintain proper best practices, and do not let convenience or somebody significantly circumvent security practices because of these things. I will give you a real world example of where this has occurred. And so recently, one of the most common vulnerabilities that we've seen lie into breaches is an application called Crush FTP. And this is the exact same fucking vulnerability that we've seen over the last several years with Excellion and fucking Go Anywhere or Get File or whatever it fucking is. Yeah, all of these fucking breaches, there's been at least 5 of them over the last 6 years that have resulted in full compromise of data on target systems because of the same fucking flaw in different pieces of software. They did not patch the software. They allowed unauthenticated access into the FTP server, and this is how attackers got in and owned all of their data. Well, one, as a best practice, FTP should no longer be used. Like, we know this as a practitioner, as a fucking IT company, as anybody implementing IT should know, FTP is from the fucking 80s. It is a protocol that has been proven to be insecure. Even doing SFTP or FTPS, it's not secure. It is a flawed file transfer protocol system, and no modern technology, no modern system should be using FTP to transfer files. There are other ways to do this. You can even set up your own, come up with a custom methodology for moving files across. There is no reason to use a shitty FTP server to do this. Yet, as security practitioners, the owners of the systems of these companies had decided that, yeah, sure, let's go ahead and do that. But also, they didn't do any sort of fucking vendor vetting. They didn't understand how their systems were interconnected. So, like, when I talk to my clients and my clients ask me about implementing a new system, I make sure that they do a full vendor vetting document so that we know how a vendor is going to communicate to and from that organization. And so that we can understand how the workflow works, what the data flow looks like, and also plan for any sort of methodology of compromise. And when we identify that an organization is using something like FTP, I just tell them flat out, no, you cannot use this. Just tell them to fuck off. Seriously. And that is what you have to do. That is what security practitioners should be implementing. They should be looking at this data, and they should be identifying the weaknesses in the value. Now, a lot of people who actually have experience within security practitioner or the security practice might be just screaming at me right now saying, oh, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about, because you should be able to secure an FTP server to and from your own software. And yeah, you probably can. That's great. That's a good point. But how are you going to do that? How are you going to make sure that that's going to be a thing? Are you going to use a VPN, a point-to-point VPN, site-to-site VPN that's been secured properly with encryption? If you do that, then might as well implement a different fucking file solution, shouldn't you? Because there's much easier ways than FTP to make sure that shit flows through, and ways that make more sense. So, congratulations. You're proving my fucking point. Anyway, hypothetical strawman argument right there, and I might have lost the lead. How is this all like how Stark? Fucking direwolves. That's how. The direwolves are at the gates. We also have direwolves at our disposal in red teamers, helping us improve our blue team abilities. Something dark side, something. Anyway, the whole Stark idea is to prepare for the winter. And as security practitioners, we must prepare to be hacked. We have to act like every action we take will get us compromised, and we have to act like every compromise can lead to serious consequences. And how do we circumvent those consequences? How do we avoid getting fully owned? How do we prevent an attack here from resulting in this data being removed here? And if we do that, then we can hopefully save Westeros, return to the old ways, and worship our old gods. Man, that's all I got time for today, guys. I hope you all have a great day.